Arizona. I had an experience when I was 5, which had me believe and then live into I was ugly, I wasn't intelligent enough, I wasn't good enough, I wasn't worthy for this, that, and the other, all because my legs, especially my knees and my thighs, were the size that they were, which wasn't anything big, particularly, not that I'm big shaming or anything, but I just created this belief that everything that I wanted that I wasn't getting was because of my legs. Yeah. And that shaped my decision making all throughout my life, and it wasn't.
Welcome back to Being in Medicine. We're really excited today to have Melanie Dixon Waite with us. She is fantastic. We've listened to her speak. She's moved us in so many ways, and we're so excited to have her here to talk with us around being in medicine. And Melanie brings such a unique perspective as really a holistic health enthusiast, right? And as well as a nutrition and fitness expert and massage therapist and aromatherapy. You've done all these aspects of medicine and healthcare, and we're just happy to have you here. So thanks for joining us, Mel.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks, Jeff. I'm really excited to be here. I love you both, and I love this being in medicine.
Well, fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, we're so happy to have you. And we were excited when we got to hear you speak recently in January at the Ultimate Experience. And the way you spoke and talked about that, what has happened for you in your life, really moved us. And your topic that we talked about that you talked about there was the power of radical self-love. Yeah. And that topic was so impactful for many people. How did you come into that topic? How did that show up for you?
So in terms of the origins of me being asked to talk about,
yeah, or just in terms of self-love, how did that topic come to you in that way?
Yeah. So for those of you who didn't hear my iteration, my story in Arizona, I had an experience when I was 5, which had me believe and then live into I was ugly, I wasn't intelligent enough, I wasn't good enough, I wasn't worthy for this, that, and the other, all because my legs, especially my knees and my thighs, were the size that they were, which wasn't anything big, particularly, not that I'm big shaming or anything, but I just created this belief that everything that I wanted that I wasn't getting was because of my legs. Yeah. And that shaped my decision making all throughout my life. And it wasn't obviously my legs as I grew older, but it was there. That was underlying. When guys would ask me out, I would often decline. I would accept, but give myself a 3-week lead time so that I could lose a bit of weight before I went out on a date with them. And I was never heavy, or I would just ridiculous things like that were just not balanced thoughts, not balanced decisions. And it was all about my feeling of self-worth, and all about that. Not self-love.
All that self-love. And so you had to wrap your mind around that story that you had created. And then you did a lot of work in shifting your mindset into that self-judgment, that, attaching self-worth to your story. And you came out into a different place, into a different story. Right?
Yes.
And you shared that story with us.
Yes, exactly. And that process was a gradual one over the years. So this belief started when I was 5, and then in January I was 57. So 52 years I'd been living into that self-belief in one form or the other. And as I matured and became an adult and started to study different aspects of health and fitness and lifestyle and the mind, and I started to get an holistic perspective of how everything is interrelated. Yeah. And then I started to study people who were experts of the mind and how our thoughts literally create the chemistry in our body, which then creates our physical reality, and that we can make ourselves sick through our negative thoughts. And I started to realize that I am loaded with daily negative thoughts, not just once or twice a day, but just loaded. I was loaded.
Right.
And then that led to uncovering certain aspects of it. But the big uncovering was last May when I was in Birmingham, the Ultimate Experience. And Steve Hardison created the perfect scenario, as he does, for me to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. And so, and that loadedness of, self-judgment and negative thoughts, right? That's common for a lot of people. I mean, that's common for us, right? And so it takes a lot of space, creating a lot of awareness within yourself to start to look at those negative thoughts, right? And start to move in the direction of more positive thinking. And so how do you practice that now? Or what did you do to get to that point where you started to look at those negative thoughts with a little more awareness?
Okay, so for me and for people that I work with, clients that I've worked with in any aspect, whether it's fitness, whether it's body work, whether it's nutrition, whatever it is, I've noticed, and this is particularly applicable to me, that very rarely is there a sort of a huge leap that's done in one go. It's usually bit by bit, kind of line upon line, just chipping away small things that occur to us that aren't actually small. They may feel small, and they may feel insignificant, and that they're not actually going to make a difference. Like, for example, I listened to Jordan Peterson ages ago. I've listened to lots of things he said, but one of the things he said was make your bed. And then he went on to talk about the impact of making your bed every day, and how that can really shift things internally in the long run. But making your bed, it's such a small thing. But that principle was so applicable to me with self-love. I remember distinctly one evening realizing that I was putting off saying yes to guys when they would ask me on a date. And I started to question why I did that. And I boiled it down to my self-loathing or not finding myself attractive or whatever was going on in my mind at that moment in time. And so I made a commitment that if a guy asked me out, I needed to say yes. And I couldn't say yes in a month's time. I had to say yes and then wait for them to suggest the date. And then if I was busy on that night, I then had to say the very next day that I was available, and that's such a small thing, but it was huge. It was huge. I was just out of my comfort zone, which was defaulting and putting off and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you, when the folks that you work with now in nutrition and fitness and all those different things, how do you help them to create some awareness around those negative thoughts? Do you have any strategies or anything that you have uncovered in your work?
Yeah. So people always have a thing, they've always got a thing, and very often they're not even aware of that thing. Like, I wasn't aware of my legs as being a stop for me, even though now that seems ridiculous that I wasn't even aware. And so just by being in conversation with whomever I'm speaking with, their dialogue will have them state what it is about their belief system that stops them from shifting. So for example, a lady, it was about 2 months ago, she's very, very anxious about being in a public place by herself. She feels that everyone's looking at her, everyone's identifying that hasn't got any friends, that she must be odd because no one's with her. So she explained to me she shared that she was meeting up with a couple of girlfriends, and this lady's in her mid-50s, in a pub, and she arrived there first, and she wouldn't go in and get a table at the restaurant in the pub because she would be alone. And so as soon as she shared that experience, then there was something for us to identify, to talk about in a really non-judgmental way. And then she could see, okay, she was stopping herself physically in that instance. So then she'd be stopping herself mentally and emotionally in other instances, and physically too.
Yeah. Just creating that space to be aware, to be present, and listen to the dialogue that's occurring. Yeah. And self-love, we get so judgmental in medicine when we're really fast paced and there's all these activities and things going on, and not just in medicine, traditional medicine, but just in the healthcare sphere, whatever you want to, however you describe healthcare. We do get stuck in some of those stories and some of that dialogue. Jeff and I have talked about this before, those negative thoughts and some of the dialogue that occurs in the world of medicine. Jeff, what do you have to say about that negative cycle of thought and dialogue that we find ourselves in from time to time?
Oh, thank you for sharing that story, Mel. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And I like how you started out by saying it was a belief. And a belief is really nothing but a concretized form of thought. So it is thought. And what I heard recently, I had upgraded my experience of understanding being, and we're here on the Being in Medicine show talking about being.
Yeah.
When one comes from that place, it's not just that I think I have big legs. It's not even just that I believe I have big legs. And it's not even really only I am that I have big legs. It's I am being that I have big legs. I am being that I have big legs. And it has an impact on who I'm showing up as and how the world looks to me.
Yeah.
So when I am being something in medicine, like I am being, it's hard to get through medicine because of all the impositions of government regulations, or it's hard to survive in medicine because of the reimbursements. And I show up that way as a way of being. It has an impact on everything around me.
Oh, yeah. On that point, my mum is in a residential care home in England, and as part of the welfare state or the NHS system in the UK, if your savings and your income is below X, you get subsidised for the residential care, and Mum's financial situation qualifies her for that residential care financial support.
Yeah.
And so I'm the one who's heading up. My siblings are, we're doing it as a team, but I'm the one who's directly liaising with the local authority that will release the funds. And this has been a process that's been going on for maybe almost a year. And at the beginning of that year, I had this aggressive manner about myself. I was being that they weren't going to release the money. So I need to go in and just fight for it. And then a couple of months into it, just like with my legs and my body perspective, I had this realization that, hang on a minute, Mel, you're going to war. You're not waiting for the war to be declared. You're actually the initiator here. And by shifting and just being very objective and looking at what the statute says, and then just addressing all of my emails or my letters from that perspective as a very factual perspective, rather than in a loaded way, everything is shifted. I no longer feel sick about the replies that I get, which I was at the beginning when I was going to war. And I see a direct parallel with that to how I saw my body, and then knowing a little bit about the brain and how the brain is the center, and it determines the center of our body, and it determines which chemicals are released, which then have an impact on the cells, which then have an impact on my body systems. And it's all related. It's all, every belief, every thought we have impacts our health, whether it's something
100%. Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that story. And what a great connection between who you were showing up as and the outcome that was being created because of it, right? And showing up going to war versus showing up being factual and being right. And that intention that you brought with that, right? And then how that ties back to self-love and how you're seeing yourself, forgiving yourself for that judgment of whatever it is going on for you. Because I think it's really important, especially in medicine or in healthcare, that we practice a fair amount of self-love, forgiveness, and acknowledging some of those stories that are being created and the conversation, the dialogue that's occurring in our brain, so that we can have awareness about it in order to be more present for the people in front of us. And, getting people to practice that, or getting them to have an understanding of how to practice that, I think would create a significant amount of positivity, and the ripple effects would be ginormous in the world of healthcare. And so,
massive.
Yeah. So in the daily practice of self-love, are there things that you do for yourself daily to practice that?
Yeah, there are, and I have some core practices, and
Sure.
then I have other things that just sort of come. So for me, I find working out is a real release, and I love to do that by myself. I don't like to go. I used to go to classes, but I just like going by myself now. Usually I go to the gym. And then I put my earphones on and I listen to something inspirational. And sometimes I'm tuned into it, and other times I let my mind just wander. I've got the inspirational thing in the background, but my mind will just go to a place so maybe it's going to one of those emails that I'm about to write in to support my mom or something. And I think it's the freedom that I give my mind that can then tap into sort of almost limitlessness.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to, because this is something I've noticed, and I don't know if you're like this, but I do a lot of classes, and I have done since I was 25. I was a formal teacher, and now I do a lot of natural health classes, and I've noticed that when I'm wrapped up in myself, my classes are just they don't flow. Or with anything in life, with this interview, if I'm anxious about not interview, but discussion, if I'm anxious about how I'm going to be perceived by listeners, or my mind is going to be so wrapped up in that, and I'm always going to find something negative, and my brain will just focus on that. And so for me, the practices of self-love, like going to the gym, meditating, and I do sort of 15-minute meditation. I try to catch myself. This is a daily practice. I try to catch myself when my mind is feeding me or holding on to one of those thoughts that's just come, because thoughts come, and then I choose if I'm going to amplify that thought. And sometimes my brain's a bit tricky, and it just latches on, and I'm a few minutes into this thought without even consciously realizing it, and it's more of a self-deprecating thought. It's not a life-enhancing thought. So being gentle with myself, and congratulating myself, way, Mel, you noticed it, yay. These really little things, little things, and then I don't find them little at all.
And you let that thought kind of be like a cloud passing through, and just letting it.
Yes.
And giving yourself.
Yes.
Jeff, are there ways in which you practice self-love, or in the fast-paced busyness of medicine that you're in?
Well, I like how Mel framed it. There's like daily practices, and then there's the ad hoc things that show up. And daily practices like my daily prayers out loud, and reciting my document to myself out loud, and things like that. And similar to what you just described, Mel, is I have an event handler, which when it gets a given interrupt has an automatic response. Like if I catch myself experiencing the sensation of regret, I automatically transform that to gratitude. Or if I catch myself experiencing myself being in judgment, and usually all judgment is ultimately self-judgment, I immediately transform that into blessing. And those are practices that I have learned from working with Steve, but I've created them into such a automatic ritualized practice that they happen almost instantly.
Fantastic. Those are great examples. Because that was one of the questions that I was going to pose to both of you, is how in a fast-paced, high stakes environment like medicine, can modern medicine, how do we help people to create that space and that awareness, to have self-love and move into non-judgment about themselves and put it into practice? I don't know if you guys have any major strategies around that in terms of how we can create awareness for folks to practice that.
to practice self-love
Yeah.
within the medical arena, both
Yeah.
patients and medical staff.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if either one of you have some your insight into that, but that fast-paced, hectic environment, creates a lot of negative thoughts. And, it's where do we begin to recognize that and nudge people in the right direction? And I don't know if we have to have the answer to that, other than just to create awareness, and conversations like this help do that.
I hear you. I think that if possible, so for medical staff, they're going to be in that fast pace. They know they're going to be in that fast pace environment all the time, don't you? I mean, occasionally there'll be a quiet patch, I'm sure, but so I think it's maybe easier for medical staff because it's coming, and my brain thinks is just thinking about fear, and when I have any level of fear, which I'm going to have, because that's life is an experience of an uncovering, is the more groundwork I can do when life is calm, or when I have an experience. Like, for example, I love interacting with people like yourself, other people in the Ultimate Coach community, other people who are really inspirational to me. I love it because they state things that I would aspire to have or to be in my life. If they're in my world, they might state things about me directly, which might uncover something that I hadn't seen that's really lovely about myself. And then I can use that to dissipate fear that I'm currently living into. And so then when the crescendo happens, I'm not in a fear-filled place. So I'm much more balanced. So I think it maybe for the medical staff, that would be applicable more to them. But for patients, when they're just living their everyday life, and then suddenly they get a diagnosis, if they haven't been practicing this self-love, then that could really knock them off balance. And it was interesting listening to Chris Chitty's conversation with you, because he wasn't, when he had that diagnosis, he talked about not being knocked off balance. He didn't use that exact phrase, but I just thought that was amazing. And I mean, he's just an incredible man. But if the medical professional is attuned with themselves and they're not fear-based, then they can really support the patient who is, and almost just hold them, not try and deflect, not try and sugarcoat, but just hold them so they feel reassured, and then their fear will dissipate, I think.
That's brilliant.
What do you think, Jeff?
I always hold the idea of just coming to presence, being present to the moment, and creating that presence and the calmness, just to create that space. I find practicing presence is really useful in calming the dialogue and bringing ourselves back. And it always finds a way for me to interact with people a little bit better when I'm in the moment, practicing being present, and all of that other stuff can just dissipate around me and not be there. And I know Jeff does that too, practices presence throughout his day with surgeries and different things. And that's just what it comes back to me, is being present to the moment, and then creating that space to be able to hold space for patients and families a little bit better.
Corey, put some meat on that. What does it mean for you to be present?
To be present for me is just that, to clear my mind, to take a deep breath and kind of center myself into where I'm at physically, mentally, and just remove all of those distractions. And so for presence for me is to create that environment where I'm not thinking of something else. I'm not having any distractions. I am focused on what's in front of me, and my body is centered on what's in front of me. And I guess that's the best way for me to describe that, Jeff. For me, is to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Can I
Go
share
ahead.
can I share an experience that I had recently about
Absolutely.
presence? And so and it's an experience I had with Steve, or he was part of it, and it's about the presence, because I've noticed that when I'm not present, when I'm wrapped up in thoughts of the past or thoughts of the future, my options or my openness in the moment is just not exist. It's non-existent at all.
Right.
So in June, I spent the whole of June in England, primarily focused on caring for mum and just sorting out a few things. And I became acutely aware that there was more that needed to be done. And every time my brain tried to troubleshoot and create solutions, I would come up with these huge barriers, these insurmountable barriers that my brain just could not solve. And I think I'm quite good at troubleshooting and problem solving, but my emotions were involved, and I was just seeing block after block. So I'd been there for about a week, and I'd been having these thoughts for maybe 2 or 3 months prior. So this was culminating. I'm physically there with my mom. And I left mum one evening and I drove back to the flat where I was staying. And it was about an hour drive. And as I'm on the drive, I was thinking about this, and I was getting upset. I was crying as I was driving, still seeing, but I was really troubled, and I was talking to my version of God, and I was talking audibly, and I was just saying, something has to happen. We need to get a solution. I need your help, and I need it now. We can't wait. Yeah. Mum can't wait, and it's got to be tangible. And as I'm speaking that, I was doubting that I would be that any kind of miracle or any kind of solution would come my way by this ridiculous prayer that I was saying. So on the one hand, I was believing it, and on the other hand, I was really doubting it. Yeah. And so I'm in the middle of this, just talking and pleading, and my phone goes, and it's Steve Hardison, and he said, I had him on video. I'm driving, and I've got my phone sort of in my hand, but in a very safe way, of course. And so he could see me, but I was looking out of the windscreen. And he said to me, Mel, how are you doing? And I said, oh, yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, I'm all right. The polite, ridiculous polite surface answer. And he just said, Mel, how are you doing? So then I started crying again, and I shared what I've just shared with you. And he said, okay, well then let's brainstorm this. Let's troubleshoot. And within 10 minutes, the most perfect solution was there. Like, everything was dealt with. I mean, everything. And it's really emotional for me now, specifically, but also in principle. It's like my brain was so wrapped up with fear and emotion and just a whole load of other things. And Steve's wasn't. And now he's been there multiple times before, since he was 2, 3, 4. I mean, he's lived his whole life creating solutions. So there's nothing he can't create, which has developed, I believe, his mind to be this just solution making machine. Yeah. And he thinks down avenues that my brain wouldn't go. But as soon as he said it, it's like, oh, well, of course. Oh my goodness. I'm so grateful for life that we have these blocks, because that was probably the biggest block that I've ever had in my entire life, just not with a critical need of timing and practical things that I couldn't get into place. And so that's now shifted my being into, whoa, if that could be solved, then the next thing can be solved,
Absolutely. Oh, that's a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
As long as we're talking about Steve, do you mind if I share something?
Yeah, I'd love it.
Something I heard from Steve is, it's not a problem unless there's a solution. So every problem has a solution. And if it doesn't have a solution, it's just what is. And now it's just time to be present with what is.
Oh, that's good.
And maybe our cognitive brains don't really have access to see every conceivable solution, but there's a solution out there. So there's an opportunity to open to divine wisdom, or send some energetic message to Steve and take that phone call right in that moment. But if we're open to the possibility that there's a solution, the solution may come.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, because what I didn't just state was that whilst I was driving, talking to my version of God, Steve was meditating in his garden, and he had a voice speak to him that everything isn't right with Mel. And I think that when we're clouded or weighed down by our own fears or self-doubts, when we're not present, there we go, that's a more succinct way of saying it. When we're not present, we block ourselves unknowingly from this amazing, universal, all-knowing love source. And that's something that Steve is to me. He's just this being of love, and I'm sure, it's just, and what an example. I mean, and how amazing is that there's a tangible person in all of our lives, and then you two are that for me as well, because just being invited onto here, it's like you see something in me that I didn't see, and so you two are that. I would never have thought that I would be on being in medicine. I mean, what do I have to add to being in medicine? But, there was a prompt. So now it's like, okay, so you two have access to that universal. You're not clouded by the judgment that I had of myself. We all have these gifts of love and presence.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. And we love having you on. So this has been a great conversation.
This.
Yeah. I'm going to shift us a little bit, because I want to ask you another kind of line of question, I suppose. You're an educator. We talked a little bit about the nutrition and the fitness and the massage and all those different things. You live a very active lifestyle. So what contributes to your healing environment? What do you create as a healing environment with your whole background that you have in everything that we discussed?
Okay. Oh, that's a brilliant question. So what I've noticed in my life is that when I'm out of integrity, my whole being just is weighed down, and my energy level, which is really typically quite high, is zapped.
Yeah.
And as I acquire more factual knowledge, my wants to shift certain things in my life become very present.
Yeah.
And so I love learning. I love it. And my knowledge base, as an example, has been I've been pulled towards looking at natural health a lot more. And so then on a practical basis, I've gone through pretty much our entire home and got rid of everything that I believe is not supporting that.
Yeah.
And that's just one kind of area of kind of the integrity that fits for me. And then as other things happen in society, in our environment, outside our environment, my home, in the world, and people make statements that if you do this is going to happen, I kind of get an instant resonance. And if my knowledge base is inadequate, I'll then go and research it. So for example, COVID and traveling, I didn't stop traveling, but I had to find out, well, what is COVID, and how is that going to impact me potentially, and all of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. So gaining factual knowledge and then having it, living into it through integrity, right?
Yes.
And making sure that it is aligning with your integrity and what you want to do and who you want to be in the world. And so that creates that healing environment for you, is to live in integrity around the principles that you've learned factually.
Yes.
Is that summarize that?
That's exactly right. And sometimes, thank you for being much more succinct than me. And sometimes that can be challenging, because what I find is that sometimes I'm listening to external information, or I'm reading something, and I just get this feeling of discord, even though most people are supporting that perspective.
Yeah.
So then I either ignore it, and I've learned that, okay, I can't ignore it because it just festers within me. So my only other choice is to then spend time researching and finding out why was there that discord in me, and what actually makes sense. And so that's what I talk about. That's what I mean about integrity. And sometimes it can be, sometimes I keep myself very quiet in a particular topic until I feel I've got a bit of a handle on it, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. What I hear in what you're describing there is taking a lot of ownership in your health and ownership in your lifestyle. Yeah.
Yes.
You work with people in lots of different ways. How do you encourage folks to take ownership of their health?
Oh, by following whatever it is that they're speaking. So they may say, for example, I think I need to shift to a vegan diet. And so then we'll have a conversation about that, because just the very words of I think I need to, well, there's a lot of doubt in that. So, so where did you get that? You know, I mean, I wouldn't be as direct as initially as saying, well, where did you get that thought that you need to shift? It would be more of a discussion about it. But that's in essence, there's a lot of programming that we get, and a lot of pressure, I think, either culturally or sort of religiously, or through our family, just through our upbringing, that we feel we need to direct our life down a certain path, or we feel that this route is going to be the utopia for our health. And I think that from my experience, the only way that we're going to optimize our health is by linking in with our integrity, because otherwise our thoughts are going to be against us, against our actions. If we're doing one thing, and so then there's war in our brain, which means there's war in our cells, which means there's war in our body. And you can undo all of that by getting in integrity and getting to the root of, okay, well, why do I believe that? Where did that come from? And almost reverse engineer our physical condition to find out what the root of the belief was that led to that condition.
Reverse engineer the condition. That's great. That's awesome. Jeff, what do you think about that?
It sounds to me that in order to be in integrity, well, first it sounded like you're very tuned into listening to your own inner wisdom, your guidance, your sensations, your feelings, your body connection. And in order to be in integrity, it would be necessary to really know who I am, and know where I'm going, know what resonates for me or not, and not just be, floating at the winds. So how does one go about becoming clear about who we are so that we know if something's integral for us or not?
Oh, that's an amazing question. Do you have any thoughts on that? Corey,
go ahead.
Well, I think it's getting really, I guess, kind of taking all those stories away, creating awareness, right? When we create awareness, to start to recognize what stories we've created in our lives, and then to start to peel those back to just who we truly are, right? You can speak to your God or whatever it may be. Getting really clear about who you are is having awareness around what stories you've created about yourself. I don't know if I'm saying that as eloquently as I should. And then to know, what do you want to create in the future, right? We know Steve Hardison so well that we're all, we speak the language of we're always creating, right? We're always creating, and we're creating our tomorrow today. We're creating the next moment and what we're doing now in this moment. And so we're always creating. So if you have a good understanding of who you are at your core, right? Whether your God made you or however you want to create that, that has to align with who you want to be and create in the future, right? And so you got to have a good understanding of who you are, and that comes from just creating awareness around who you want to be and what stories you've created already. I guess that's the way I would describe that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I think for me, it's those non-useful thoughts, right? Those non-useful thoughts, being aware of what those are, creating the space to recognize them. And then, through that practice that I went through in terms of creating my document of who I am, was take those non-useful thoughts and really get down to the root of what generated those and what do I really know myself to be, right? And that's going to help me create who I want to be in the future. And so, yeah, it takes some work to do that, but it takes really just some awareness of what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I created a document maybe 2 years ago, 18 months ago, something like that. And I felt good about it. And I kind of tried to look at my life in the past and then
Yeah.
create, my document from there. And then just really recently, again, it was spurred by what my mum's going through. I kind of feel bad in a way that my mum's going through what she's going through as a teaching that tool for me, because it's massive. So my mum's had to go through all of this. Mom's got dementia and she's declining, yeah, but it's really helping me to see who I am, so I've got this document and I was reciting it and I was feeling quite good about it, but I was also feeling a bit detached from it. And so maybe at a similar time to when I really started to think about the solution that I referenced earlier on, that something needs to change. We're not serving mum adequately. About that time, I just thought, I'm going to bag my document because it's not really serving me. It just wasn't cutting to my core, and I liked it, so I bagged it, and I'm 3 statements into my new document, and I know there's more, but my second statement is, I am irrational service. And when I came up with that, my whole body just lit up. And I had these little glimpses of times in my life when I had been irrational service, and it was as if life was just beautiful. It didn't matter how much money I had. It didn't matter if I was married or not married, kids, no kids, anything like that. It just, the only thing that mattered was that moment. And I thought, this is how I want to live my life. I want to live my life feeling that feeling all the time. And how do I get there? And so that's why for me, it just all boils down to this personal integrity, which we all can resonate with, I think, when we get out of our way. And for me, it's a constant thing of, am I looking good? As in, I don't just mean physically, I mean, as in, are people perceiving me in a favorable way? Where they go, that has colored my entire life since I was 5. Right. And the bulk of it has gone now, but I've got these little vestiges which are just hanging on,
Right.
Yeah.
And those thoughts are always going to be there, right? I mean, it's not that those thoughts are going to go away. It's now that you have now done the work to create the space to recognize the thought and let it pass through your mind, and then move through life with a different, more useful thought. Right.
Yes.
And that's those thoughts. I think that's one of the things people have a misconception on, is that, those negative thoughts, we want to replace them with useful thoughts. But what we're really doing, a lot for me anyways, personally, is creating the space to just recognize the thought, let it pass through, so that the more positive thought could be in action for me.
We're always going to get knocked off balance, but the practice is how quickly could we restore our balance? Come back to who we are.
So I have a question for you too. So go in the medical arena, when you're with a patient that is clearly unbalanced, they're full of fear or anxiety, or what is it that you, what's your approach to that? What is it that you do, and how are you being? And
Jeff, you want to tackle the first part of that?
For me, there's like 2 aspects of that. One is just being with them and connecting as deeply as possible, maybe not even saying anything, just being there and listening and hearing where they're really coming from, and acknowledging the fears. It's normal to be fearful. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And then it's ideally transforming that into a sense of self-autonomy. So whenever we're doing something with medicine, it's not just like me, the doctor, right? It's a big team. It's a big team of people. And every one of us would be committed to doing what's necessary to create the desired outcome. And it's not even people. There's something greater than all of us guiding even the body's ability to heal is necessary, and that wouldn't exist if there weren't something bigger than all of us human beings creating our body's ability to heal. But the team, the way I see it, is what the patient brings to the game matters most. Their mindset, their commitment, their level of engagement and involvement makes more of a difference than anything the rest of us can do. That's the most important part. So having them see that and see themselves as the most important of the team in the creation of this outcome, and actually hearing their commitment verbalized to me. Can I count on you doing your part? Can I count on you doing what's necessary to create this outcome? And hearing them respond, yes, I will do that, I'm committed, to me is like a shift in the direction of that outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, my space, and I don't apply this just to patients, but with teams, team members, folks in the world, families. I do believe that presence offers some healing aspects. Just being present with them to listen, oftentimes creates way more healing than the prescription that I could write. Just listening to them and letting them speak until they're empty. And just have space, holding space for what they need to say. I don't know how many times I've been with a patient where, yeah, I'm running behind, but I got time to just listen. And that creates a whole environment and a whole healing environment that never would have existed before if I just would have rushed through and not been present with them. So if that answers your question.
Yeah. So both of you said that, allowing or giving the patient the space just to express themselves. And I love what you said there, Jeff, about fear. It's rational to feel frightened.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Not try to pretend that it's irrational or that it's not valid or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, when you show up as a patient or the family member of a patient, like your mom, for example, what insights would you give us as far as how to create that?
So my mom's psychiatrist really blew me away 2 weeks ago when we saw a pattern in mum's level of anxiety. Mum forgets from sort of minutes. She's probably got about a 2-3 minute loop. Sure. And if that. And her psychiatrist said that her mind forgets, but her emotions don't forget.
Oh,
and
wow.
so if we can, so he was talking to us as a family and also mum's carers, if we can create a focus on behavioral repetition, that will enable mum's emotions to reconnect. And then her anxiety levels can come down. And so then she won't be dependent on anti-anxiety medications, which preferably we'd use those as minimal as possible. And so that's where the family comes in, because we know mum's behavioral patterns over the decades, the things that she liked to do, things that she doesn't like, and little things that, for example, mum loves, and I know Elizabeth Adams talked about this, essential oils. She loves them. And she instantly calms when she smells them, instantly. And then her mind and her dialogue goes to a place of when she used to use them repetitiously. And so then she'll start speaking that. And just listening to mum talk about whatever she's saying brings her anxiety down even more. So which is exactly what you both just said about allowing the patient to express themselves and not hurry them. Because in the past, when before we realized before mum's diagnosis, she clearly had dementia, and I would hurry mum up in her speaking, or I would say something like, you've already said that, you said that, mum, I mean, I would love to go back. I would love to go back now and revisit myself, but it's all a learning thing, like you said. It's all a learning thing. But I loved what you both said then about just giving the patient space, because we all want space to just express ourselves, to be heard, whether it's verbally or in some other form of communication.
It just takes and surprisingly, visits don't take as even that long if you just create the space to let them to speak. It's
Yeah,
amazing, right? How fast, not fast, but how information can be moved through just being present and letting people speak
yeah,
without trying to hurry them along.
Efficient.
yeah.
The appointments actually become more efficient.
That's
Um,
so interesting.
it is very interesting. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, your background in all of the
yeah,
things, nutrition,
yeah, yeah,
fitness, holistic medicine, massage, aromatherapy,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
all fall generally into that holistic health area. If you
Yes,
could tell traditional medicine folks one thing that
yes,
you've learned that they should learn too, or that they
yeah.
should have an experience with, is there something that stands out to you?
Oh, the mind.
Yeah, the mind.
Definitely the mind. I don't know if what I'm going to say next is factual, but it's definitely something that everything that I've experienced and that I've studied and that I continue to study points to the fact that anything that's outside of us is is really nothing more than a placebo.
Yeah,
But because we have a real belief that it can help us, it does have that physical impact. So I'm not suggesting to not do whatever it is that the person's called to do, from taking medication, having operations, all of that kind of stuff. I think that's all vital, because that's where our mind is at that moment in time. But I do believe that it is possible for our mind to be in such a balanced state that it can rebalance everything within us. And so that's what I would say is like just going back to what you both have just said about giving the patient space. It's like when the person has said or expressed, communicated physically or in another way, everything that's inside of them, they're then an empty vessel. They're not waiting to butt in and speak whatever or communicate something. They're free. And so now they get to listen, and then you as the physician, you have all this knowledge and wisdom that can really help them, but it's not going to get in unless they're open to hearing it. And I just think that that's so true about our entire being. If we're in a place of defensive resistance, then our cells literally shut off. They're in protection mode to a certain degree, completely or just partially. And the only thing that can open them is our internal chemistry, which comes from our brain, which comes from our beliefs. And so that for me, it just all boils down to that.
Understanding the mind and the thoughts and
Yeah.
everything that's created there. Oh, I absolutely love that. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Jeff, whatever insights or questions do you have for Mel?
Wow. Oh, so far you've really just blown my mind. It's amazing.
We're so thankful, Mel, to have you on, and just want to acknowledge you for the demonstration. I mean, honestly, for demonstrating self-love in front of the folks at the Ultimate Experience was just wonderful. I mean, I had a wonderful experience of you and the story that you shared, and I just want to thank you for being a demonstration of self-love and how to practice it and to put it into place. So thank you for that.
You're welcome, and yeah, thank you. And I just on that topic alone, I am so grateful for everyone who's been in my life since and before I was 5. So leading up to 5, so I had that experience, and then beyond, because it would not have been so impactful for me had I not had all of those those people interacting with me, me refusing to, I'm getting emotional now, me refusing to participate in whatever it was that I thought I couldn't until my legs were thinner, and it all just crescendoed, and then it just all exploded when Steve and I were in the car, and that's how the whole jacuzzi experience came about, because Steve said, we're going to deal with this, and and then my fear around that and the trust in who Steve is. It's like life is not an isolatory journey. Everything is so connected. and it's priceless like that. And I try to remember that when I have a what I would call a negative thing come up in my life. It's like, Mel, the other side of this is so expansive. So just stay with it. The solution's coming, or not. It's just a thing to be with. Just going right to, if there isn't a problem, no. And this world and this community that we're in, I just think it's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. And you had 4 gentlemen besides Steve that were with you during that event, that experience that you had, that, I want to just, when you told the story in Arizona, just the amount of love and support that those gentlemen showed to you to hold space for you to kind of deal with those negative thoughts that you're having. It's quite a demonstration as well. Those four guys.
They are my forever heroes.
Yeah.
They are literally my forever heroes. I'm just so grateful that they were in the hotel, that they came. I mean, one of them didn't have a swim costume. He just came with his boxer shorts. That didn't stop him from coming. Right. And, I love that. I didn't even notice at the time. I was so wrapped up in myself. Didn't even notice, but they are just amazing men. And there was a 5th one, but he's not part of the community, so he wasn't there in Arizona. But all of them forever heroes.
Yeah.
Mel, there's something I want to thank you for. I am irrational service. That's a declaration.
Yeah.
What you said, if one's declaration doesn't make you stand up and sing, go deeper. Go deeper. That was brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you Mel for being on today. It's just been a fun time to talk with you and to talk more about self-love and self-forgiveness and all of the mind-body connection that we had this conversation around. So thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you and we love you. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you next time on Being in Medicine.